Hello, my name is Kai, and I am a bit of a rambler. I like to travel, learn, and tell stories. Today, I want to talk about just the cost of traveling itself, the brass tacks numbers. And I'm going to compare a lot of these costs to the cost of living in the US, because that's what I'm most familiar with. And I'm going to be converting all of the costs that I talk about in every country back to US dollars, so you can easily just use one metric and see how much cheaper it is to live abroad than to live in your home country. Just a one-to-one comparison of what you're paying for an apartment in the US versus what you would pay in Vietnam or Portugal or Germany or Australia or anywhere else is a very easy way to see how much cheaper it is to travel. This becomes even more apparent if you're a long-term traveler, because then you don't have health insurance unless you want to buy it, and it's like $150 a year. You don't have any car or vehicle insurance, but you can still get around because public transportation works in all other countries. You're not paying for any utilities because you're renting. You're not paying any earned income taxes if you're gone for more than 330 days out of the year if you're a US citizen. You're not paying any home repairs if the shower breaks or the table breaks. I don't know, if whatever breaks, they're gonna replace it for you. You're not paying fuel prices. There's no tipping abroad. There's no automatic gratuities. There's no sales taxes in supermarkets. There's so many everyday costs of living that you probably don't even notice anymore that will immediately disappear as soon as you start traveling, and those savings will just keep adding up the longer you are abroad. I want people to be aware that if they really want to travel, have always wanted to travel, or are thinking about traveling, but their main concern is cost, it should not be, objectively, just from a cost perspective. That should be the least of your worries concerning travel. And since these costs are going to be dunking on the US and making it look bad for 30 minutes or whatever this is, I want to mention up top a couple of things I like about the US. I love the creativity in the US. I love the environment, the animals. There's a lot of great stuff in the US. Shout out to the National Parks Annual Pass. That's one of the most worth it things I have ever bought. Visit all the national parks for $75 a year or something like that it was. That's an amazing value for life-changing experiences, seeing some of the most beautiful parks I have ever visited. But living in the US month to month is also excessively, often prohibitively, costly. Literally 10 times more expensive than living in a similar condition in many other countries. So this episode is specifically about, but isn't traveling expensive? And if you're from the US or a modern, developed Western European country, the answer is no. It is not expensive relative to the cost of living in your rudely called developed country right now. Even if you move to Western Europe from the US, as I'll mention later, the costs are going to be half as much generally. And if you move into Southeast Asia or East Asia, except for housing in Japan, the prices can be 10 times cheaper than what you're paying now. So is traveling expensive, especially long-term travel? No, it isn't. And usually you will save money by traveling long-term. The longer you travel, the more you will save. Car payments or anything like that. Traveling is nothing compared to those costs. The amount you're paying for just your utilities right now in the US pay for a whole private apartment, including utilities, in dozens of countries. I'll talk about frugal travel tips and all that other stuff in other videos, and I'm sure they'll come up a lot because one of my favorite parts about traveling is how much money I save. I've never ended up in a deficit after traveling. I've always come back with a net profit, or I've never spent money overall traveling. I've been perpetually saving money now for almost 15 years. My travel experience so far has been a wild net gain. Part of that is due to the FEIE, part of that's due to just the nature of how I like to live, but I know people of all walks of life, families, disabled people, like everybody, and whatever their activities are, they always end up spending less than they think they will. But if you are trying to be frugal at all, it's very easy to live for less than $1,000 a month and have your own place and all the food you need for under $500 a month. That is not a difficult ask for many countries. I'm talking about most of Southeast Asia, most of East Asia, a lot of Western Europe. Like in Portugal, you can get a month in a hostel for $300. That one's, that's a hostel. But still, you can go stay in Lisbon for $300 rent a month. And then all the facilities are very nice there, of course. And then you are going to meet people. And if you want your private room, then you just... You know what? I was going to make up a number, but instead I'm going to check right now what a price is for your own private room in Lisbon, Portugal, because that's the city I said. So in April 2025, the prices look a little more expensive, but similar to what I saw when I visited 8 years ago. Okay, looks like right now I can see 5 rooms from $490 to $524 for a private room in Lisbon, Portugal. You're probably paying much more than that for your private room wherever you are in the States. And that's Lisbon. It's a very popular tourist destination in Europe, and it's the most popular tourist destination in all of Portugal. If you go to another city, it'll be much cheaper than that. In fact, let's check. Yep, so if you take a train, it costs $20 north, 100 miles or something, for an hour or whatever. Then you can pay $329 up to, looks like, $490. But instead of starting at $490, it starts at $170 cheaper, 30% cheaper, in Atugia de Baleia. And that's, so a 1 hour train ride, and you just cut down to $330 a month. $390 per month, I see. Let's see. Oh, that's nice. Private house for $500. Yeah, so $500 a month in the city centers with zero. I haven't, dived into this. I just want to show that even without any planning, if you went to Lisbon tomorrow, your rent would be less than $500. You could end down to $330 like we just found for a private room and bathroom in Lisbon, Portugal. Now, if you're not from the USA, then this isn't going to be strange to you, but I'm going through this in detail because it is very strange for Americans to hear this. 2A1, every American I talk to asks, how can you possibly travel for so long? Traveling is so expensive, is what I hear from everyone who has not traveled yet. And that's okay. I thought the exact same thing before I traveled. And that's part of why I wanted to start the podcast, not just to share stories, but to share useful knowledge that might allay anxieties or worries about traveling in general, especially these common ones like, travel is so costly I can't afford it. I want to let people know that if they're paying several $100s in rent, plus car payments, plus insurance, their cell phone bill, just all the regular costs, then they can travel for cheaper and probably save money while abroad. And I just tell them, well, if I'm staying in the States, I'm paying $1,600 for a private room, minimum $800 for like a shared room in any decent city, at least in a private way that I like to live. $800 per month. I probably have a car, so, I'm paying car insurance. Every time I buy a pizza, it's like $20 or like $13 if I only get it on Tuesdays when the specials are going. And I just add it up, and I'm like, so I'm easily spending $2,000 per month trying to be frugal in the United States. The utilities are add on $400 for your utilities and cell phone bill and whatever streaming services you have. The overhead is so much lower abroad that I always am saving money while traveling relative to the costs of living in the United States. And I'm not really missing out on anything. Bands travel, so I can see live shows wherever I go. There's live music. The utilities are utilities. They have electricity, Wi-Fi, 5G, everything in the rest of the world. They have supermarkets, they have trees. So I'm not getting anything that I get in the US. It's just, I'm just in a different place that costs much less and usually has much better food. So just as an example, let's say you're paying $1,500, you're a frugal person by necessity maybe in the US, and you're only paying $1,500 for all of your expenses per month. You're squirreling away a couple hundred, for emergencies each month if you can. If you take that $1,500, 500 USD should get you nearly anywhere in the world. All the flights, with no planning ahead, jump on Skyscanner and choose a ticket. 500 will get you to Australia, to China, to Japan, literally almost anywhere in the world. Maybe like Antarctica or something will be more expensive. But, okay, I'm going to quote those prices again. I was going to say the prices I know roughly, but why not just check it out? So Skyscanner, no preparation, just typed in 2 days from now, just clicked on 2 days from now. If you fly out of New York, Barbados is $60. Canada is $29 right now. Puerto Rico is $83. Ecuador is $120. Iceland is $160. Colombia is $174. Italy is $176 right now. If you buy it and you're leaving on Friday, you can be in Italy for $170. France is $180. United Kingdom is $190. So these are a little more expensive than you should expect to pay because, like I said, I didn't use a private tab, which I usually do to search for flights because the cookies do like add on $20 to your flights if you search like multiple times in a week or something. But Guatemala's $200, Romania's $200, Peru's $240, Germany is $268, Denmark $271, Greece $283, Sweden $290, Uruguay. I mean, they're all, like I said, everything's under $500, and this was with zero preparation, leaving in 2 days. So if you have a passport, you can go to any country that you want to go to for less than $500. How about, I didn't even get to Asia. India's $450, Korea's $460. So these aren't, this is clearly because I looked earlier in the week. You'll get cheaper prices. There's still Taiwan's $500, $520, Vietnam's $514, but that's quite expensive. I would expect to pay closer to $400. Like right now, I'm flying from India to New York for $420, and that's even a little more expensive than I usually pay, but only, I don't know, $50 more expensive, I'd say. So I wasn't really worried about quibbling for the price because the price. I've been living in India, so I've literally spent $300 per month on a huge house with all utilities included, 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, just a giant nice house, a private house with locking gates and a parking space and all that, all the utilities included, $300 a month. And then I'm finding it very difficult to spend more than $100 per month on food and candy and snacks and fun and just get going around the city and visiting things. I'm not going to clubs or anything like that, but I'm not depriving myself of anything. I like, my hobbies are very frugal anyway. Like I like reading, I like writing, I like drawing, I like exploring a lot. I will ride my bike for 100 kilometers just to see what's over that mountain. But so I spent $400 this month basically in India. And I mean, that's nothing compared to what I would be spending if I was in the States. In the States, if I have to take the bus somewhere, I'm like, oh man, $6? Okay, I have to go, go to the DMV. So it's $3 to get there and $3 to get back, which in India is only, who can say, 10 cents maybe round trip. It's very cheap here is the point. That is the point. You will be saving money if you are traveling. And again, the longer you travel, the more you will save. And the better you'll get at traveling, so things will be cheaper, so you'll save even more, and so on and so forth. Which is news to most Americans. So America is isolated. It's connected to 2 countries, which is very odd. Most countries in the world are connected to a bunch of other countries. So most people think, okay, I pay a little money for a ticket, I go on a vehicle, and then I'm in another country and it costs the amount of fuel plus infrastructure to get me to that other place. So I think most people in most other countries have a more normalized view of ticket prices and travel in general, that you can just leave whenever you want. You can just go to another country. And obviously, it's easier when you're connected to the other country, but it's not actually different for Americans, and in fact is often much easier because of our visa-free travel status our passport enjoys. When Americans talk about travel, though, to me, relative to people from other countries, they often talk about travel as this distant goal or sort of like a mythical objective that could happen. They know it's physically possible. They know it's economically possible, but they don't think it's as simple as it is. And almost none of them realize how affordable it is. How wise a financial decision traveling is. I certainly didn't. I still can't get over how fair grocery prices and transportation prices are in other countries. And I've been doing this for 15 years. And I think it does play into that isolation that for Americans, they don't understand that the process of traveling is that simple. They don't have to struggle or suffer to buy the ticket, so it doesn't make intuitive sense to an American used to American work culture. Americans don't intuitively trust the streamlined process of buying a ticket, getting to the vehicle on time. And that is most of the trouble of traveling. I talk to a lot of Americans about this, and they seem freaked out that there's no internship, that they don't have to prove themselves for years thanklessly without pay in order to enjoy this privilege that is travel, that is available to all Americans. Americans, if you have a passport, can tomorrow go to 160 countries, either visa-free or with visa on arrival, which for the first means you don't need to do anything, and for the second means that you give them $20 or $40 when you land and they stamp your passport and then you're done. The ones that require visas, almost all of them, just in the last decade, have switched to e-visas. So you go on the official government website, you pay $10 to $50, depending if you're going to stay for like 6 months or 5 years, and then they email you back the visa and you go to that country. So it's a very streamlined, simple, inexpensive process. Like $50, $50 is kind of a lot for a visa. Yeah, but that's 5 years in India. So you can imagine you want to buy a car, and you can buy a $10,000 car or you can buy an identical $1,000 car if you pay for a special license that costs $20 first. That's the only functional difference between the two cars, that you can pay $10,000 if you don't want to fill out a form that takes 10 minutes to fill out and pay them $20 for the license. Or you take 10 minutes, pay the $20 for the license, and get the functionally identical car for $1,000. Obviously, pay for that special license that costs $20, then buy the $1,000 identical car. That's what getting a visa is like for a lot of these inexpensive countries. Say you do visit India, which you should. There are 2 billion people there and the food rocks. Let's say you go crazy and just buy a lot every day and you spend $1,000 per month. Every dollar over $1,000, if you make a remote job, or you're saving the remainder of your pay, all of it, rather than all of those invisible costs we mentioned up front, as well as the baseline 80 to 90% reduction in cost for everything in India relative to the United States. Even if it's way cheaper, I still need some kind of money, so how do I pay for traveling? If you have or can find a remote job that pays more than $500 per month, and any ESL job will get you way more than that, then you can live perpetually. You can travel perpetually. Any work that you do, you're going to get better at as you do, and you'll probably make a little more money. So if by the end of the year you're making $700 per month rather than $500, now you're saving $200 per month. It's also not expensive to travel for Americans specifically because they're just very lucky to be citizens and native speakers of English. You can teach English in dozens of countries and make probably as much money as most Americans make normally. You land in China, you're making $2,500 minimum starting. Maybe not minimum if you have no degree, you have no certification, you can't speak the language or not, there maybe you'll make only $2,000 per month. There are postings right now for Saudi Arabia between $4,500 and $6,000 a month if you have a bachelor's and a TEFL certification. But you could, let's say minimum $2,000. You fly to China tomorrow with nothing, and you land in China, you can get a job for $2,000 a month, teaching 20 to 25 hours a week, teaching English right away. And in China is one of those countries where you can easily spend $500 per month and save the other $1,500 per month, which is what I did. I spent to excess after a while, but I was still saving $1,000 a month every month I was in China, at least. So the cost of travel itself, much cheaper than you might think. Only a couple $100s to go to most places, only $400 plus to go to the most expensive places without any planning ahead. If you keep an eye on the prices day after day, you'll find the cheap things. Like it's not uncommon to get a ticket from Ireland to Morocco for $30. Or Atlanta to New York is $29. You want to get to New York or Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, one of the major port cities, because they'll be the cheapest in getting out of the States. But even if you're not there, add on $50 from any major airport in the middle of the country or anywhere else in the country, and it'll take you to New York or LA. So all of those prices I said earlier, add on $50 if you're not on the coasts, and that's your new price. Just add on $50, which is nothing compared to the important overhead cost, which is so much lower abroad in most countries. You spend $300 USD on a flight ticket to a country where your own private house only costs $400 per month. So ticket prices are pretty low. They're a couple $100. The cost of living in other countries is excessively low. I can't describe well how much cheaper it is to live abroad, but literally 90% cheaper in India, for example, I can say. I'm living 90% cheaper. I have free AC, a heater, 5G. I have everything. My cell phone plan is $2 a month, and I have... Actually, that's not unlimited. I think the unlimited is like $5, and I have unlimited Wi-Fi, so I don't use that much data. So that's 95% cheaper than what I was paying in the US for my cell phone bill. So if you're frugal or even financially responsible or really just sensible, right now you're struggling in the United States and thinking like, how can I just save money so I can do what I want? Go travel. Get a job online that pays you $500 a month. I was living on $200 a month for a while, between $200 and $300. Like $250 was not weird for me. I was only staying in dorms, but I'd spend $100 a month on a dorm in a hostel. The pub hostel in Cambodia, Siem Reap, is $90 a month, sometimes $120 a month, but it was $90 when I just checked last month. And then $200 on food and hobbies and, shows, cultural exhibitions, and taking buses between cities and stuff, just traveling around. So you'll be fine on $500. You will survive with your own room and food and all of that. And if you teach, then you're going to be saving $1,000 to $2,000 a month, especially if you get that TEFL certification. So check out the TEFL podcast I did. Or if you just want to devote 6 months to a project that you want to work on, if you have a few $1,000s, you can go spend 6 months in Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, which are beautiful, comfortable, modern countries. They're not like Japan or New York modern, but they have all the modern amenities. You have, like I said, 5G and AC and all that kind of stuff. And you can comfortably live in those places and work on what you want to work without having to work 40 hours a week at some service job in the US just to maintain a roof over your head. You can have that for much, much less abroad. And you can work on what you are passionate about. So it's also, if you don't have any savings, you can get an IT job. There are so many SEO certifications and all types of IT certifications that you can get and get any crappy IT job for $20 an hour. And you work 10 hours a week, $20 an hour, $200, that's your rent. 2 weeks, $400, now you have a private room per month. So every 2 weeks you're working, if you only work for 10 hours per week, which you'll probably work more, that's a private room. And then you have another $400 because, another $200 from working 10 hours a week at $20 an hour. That's just for fun. That's for eating and expenses, but entertainment. So instead of barely making your rent, work 10 hours a week, make all of your expenses. Or work more hours, make your rent in a week, and save the other 3 weeks. As an example, I was making $2,500 when I first arrived in China teaching English, and my rent was, I want to say 120 USD roughly per month. So I made my rent in about 3 days each month. And then after food and entertainment, beer, I was saving the other 28 days of income every month. Have all of your utilities already paid for. Yeah, it's all taken care of. If IT work sounds bad and teaching also sounds bad, these are just a couple examples. There are so many different jobs available that you can make $500 a month on. And as long as you're making $500 a month, all of your financial stressors are gone. You are covered for food and rent. Food and board is done if you're making $500 a month, and from there you can find something you like that will help you make more than $500. Or if you're fine with just traveling on $500 a month, covering your room and board and travel, yeah, you're good. There are lots of seasonal work. You can go pick fruit in tons of countries. Well, I'll say like a dozen countries that I know about. Like I know you can do it in Chile. I know you can do it in Australia and New Zealand, although New Zealand recently changed it because their economies, whatever. Spain and France, I know, have that. Germany definitely has agricultural farming jobs that you can do. I knew a married couple who just moved with the seasonal agricultural work, and they basically went between Australia and Europe and worked on farms harvesting whatever they needed harvesting. And they usually, or at least the places they went, provided housing as well. So their only expenses for that paid work while staying in the country were food and cell phone bills. And then they were just saving money moving country to country with almost no expenses. And they were just enjoying themselves, saving up money to buy a house and start a family eventually. And just by picking berries, they did it. Like they were saving money at the rate they wanted to without any stress because they both liked working on farms and achieving their goal because of traveling. It's really where your preferences lie. I don't mind teaching, especially because teaching is a bunch of smart, polite students. I say red, yellow, blue. Red, yellow, blue, they repeat after me. I count to 10, they count to 10 after me. Every 45 minutes, I'm making like $15 at the barest minimum. So every 2 to 3 minutes, you're making another US dollar, and that is a meal in China. $3 is too much food on a plate. That's it. I just say colors and numbers to polite, respectful students, and it helps. You are helping their venturing out into the world. English is a good resource to have in your back pocket. So you're not doing a useless job. Hello, how are you? They repeat after you. That is actually beneficial to non-English speaking students. You're doing a good thing. You're getting compensated very well. There's no planning or anything required. Like if you go to those Asian countries I was talking about, you will get a job and start teaching and start getting paid. And you will earn the cost of your monthly rent in less than a week. After that, anything you don't spend on food or entertainment is savings. And all those countries are cheap, so food and entertainment is not going to cost that much. And you will be saving money working fewer hours. Those are not the only 3 jobs. Teacher, IT person, agricultural work. There are any number of jobs that you can do online, either remote work or locally, and I'll go over that in the remote work episode or employment abroad episode. Look for what you're interested in. You only need to make $500 to survive, and then you can work on what you're actually passionate about. Or find something that makes you $1,000 or $1,500 a month, and you're good. You're saving every single month more than you're saving in the States right now, probably. And have that capital to use for whatever you want to use the capital for. I really wanted to talk about this because it's the first thing I always hear. Not just from Americans, but Americans have a particular insistence that travel is unattainable unless you are already rich. And I moved from the US basically permanently I think I had just about $700 in my bank account And I had asked a school to hire me beforehand, and they agreed to. But once I landed there, it's like, oh, okay, I can work anywhere. There's 100 schools that all want to hire me. It's a little different with Xi Jinping in charge now. He shut down. He made the laws more difficult. But I just checked because I'm helping somebody else become an English teacher right now. So I was checking the classifieds, and there's still literally 473 English teaching jobs just in the city center of Beijing. One city in a country of thousands of cities and towns with more than 1.5 billion people. The job is not going away anytime soon. And even if it was all gone from China, there are jobs in Vietnam, Thailand, Saudi Arabia, just all over. So if you can handle just saying, "How are you?" "I'm fine, thank you." And then they repeat after you. If you can do that, then you can make enough in a week to live in a foreign country and then save for the other 3 weeks and do whatever you really want to do. You'll be working far fewer hours than you're working too. Like most Americans are working 40-hour weeks or close to it. The biggest days to teach will be on the weekend. So you might have an 8-hour day on Saturday, and then you'll have a 6-hour day on Sunday. And that's 45 minutes per each class session, 15-minute break. So 14 hours on that weekend, but then that's only 6 more hours over the Monday through Friday. So you maybe work 2 days, 2 hours one day or 3 hours another day. So most of your time is free already because you're only working 2 days a week, close to full shifts, 8 hours and 6 hours, but most of the other days are free and you can work on whatever you want to anyway. And that 8 plus 6 hours plus the 6 over the whole rest of the week, that's 20 hours a week. And at $15 an hour, you're making $300 a week. And $300 is enough for all of your food and fun per month. $300 is your rent. So you have at least 2 weeks of just savings. That's if you were only making $15 an hour, which is the absolute lowest I heard of anyone making in China a decade ago, and up to $100 per hour for face-to-face one-on-one private students. You meet in a cafe, you have the lesson prepared, you guys do a lesson, here's $100 an hour. I got my private student by doing my laundry outside, and someone ran up to me and asked me if I would teach their friend's daughter who was going to Canada, I think, for high school or something like that. But I said, sure, but I'm really expensive because I actually didn't want to teach. And I said something like $75 an hour US. And she was like, oh, that's fine. They're super rich. They don't care. And I was like, oh, okay, great. And that's how I got my $75 an hour private tutoring gig. But even if you don't get the one-on-one thing, which again, you do have to make your own lessons for, it is a little more work, you can work at any of those schools 25 hours a week. 4 weeks like that, you're making $2,000 minimum per month. Most places in Asia cost less than $500 a month to live in. So whether you're in Europe, or you want to go to Southeast Asia, or you want to go to South America, everywhere is cheaper than the States. And if this is about money for you, then you can live frugally, especially in Southeast Asia, extremely easily. You can start saving money as soon as you're making more than $500 per month. You can survive comfortably on $500 USD a month. And if you build that up to $1,000, you'll be sitting pretty. You can do whatever you want, making $1,000 per month with remote work or teaching or ag farming or whatever it is, whatever you can get a job doing. And the travel itself is not very expensive. You spend a couple $100, and once you spend that initial couple $100, once you spend, let's say, $500, just for the most expensive price you could possibly pay traveling anywhere in the world, you'll probably pay less than that. But let's say you spend $500 to go from, who knows, New York to Saudi Arabia or Thailand. You spend $500, you get a bad deal, and you spend $500 to get over. Once you're in Thailand, it's like $40 to fly to any other country, and often $25. Thailand to Laos is $20. Everywhere is $20 from Thailand. It's all connected. Japan is only $100, so it's very cheap to travel once you're in Asia, you can travel to all the other Asian countries cheaply. Once you're in the Middle East, you can travel to all the Middle Eastern countries easily. Once you're in Europe, you can travel to all the European countries super easily and cheaply. So the initial ticket might be a little bit, but if you travel perpetually, your travel costs are less than $100 per month. I flew around the US to visit friends in the beginning of the year, so I spent $500 in total on multiple flights visiting everybody and moving from East Coast, Philadelphia, to Hong Kong. So after visiting like 4 cities in the US, I stopped in Hawaii for a while, and then I flew to Hong Kong. And all total, I think the total was $470. It was around there anyway, $470 US. So then I was in Hong Kong, and in 1 month, the much lower cost of living in Hong Kong and the subsequent countries completely negate months of travel costs. Because let's say you spend $500 like I did over a few months. In 1 month, I'm only spending maybe $500 for the 1 month to live in Hong Kong versus the $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000 that I would spend in 1 month to live in the States. And I went to Thailand for a few months, Laos for a few months, Vietnam, and then India. And each of those flights were $30. Hong Kong to Thailand was only 20-something. So I spent, we'll say, $150 total the rest of the year. So all of my costs of travel for the entire year was about $620. And I just think of how much it would have been if I was living in the States just for 1 month of rent and utilities and car payments and all that kind of stuff that you don't need while you're traveling. There's public infrastructure abroad. There's trains that take you. There's buses that take you anywhere for next to nothing. You can take international buses for $10 US or less pretty much anywhere I've been. Maybe if you're in Europe and you're going from, I don't know, Austria to Portugal, it'll be like $40 US, but it's still just incredibly cheap to travel on public transport anywhere in the world except for the US. And you should definitely check out these flights, hotels, cost of living costs for yourself online, or better yet, check out YouTube videos, because instead of just a math equation where the search engine tells you the AI cost of living, which I can personally tell you is often wrong, as in much too expensive, you can watch and listen to the people who are actually living in those countries. A beer as compared to a beer you're paying for where you're from, or a plate of food. Sort of real cost of living things on the ground. Everyone should check it out for themselves, because I wouldn't have believed how low the cost of living is abroad if I hadn't experienced that life myself. But now you don't have to do that. You can just watch people like me showing you the actual prices in real time in YouTube videos in different countries. We'll end it there, but to sum up, is it expensive to travel? Not at all compared to what you are used to paying, especially if you get a job while you're abroad or you have any kind of remote work that pays you more than $500 a month, as a rough guideline. That's not fun though. I'm going to end on a few more flight prices just because I love to look at flight prices all the time anyway. Did I say flight prices? Fighty flight prices. Okay, so let's say you're from Los Angeles this time and not New York, just to switch coasts. Oh, well, okay, $26 to Las Vegas, so that's cool if you want a weekend, cheaper than a Greyhound. Mexico is $50, Canada is $90 on the West Coast today for that random day I chose. It's usually cheaper. All the other prices look the same. Ooh, Colombia's $200, but oh, okay, Japan is only $200 right now. So Japan is one of the visa-free countries for Americans, so if you have a passport, you can fly to Japan from Los Angeles for $200. Oh, that's pretty nice. I gotta go look into that. You can talk to me at bitofarambler@gmail.com or bitofarambler on all the socials, and I will catch you on the flip side.